Why, hello there, Nice Tail here. I hope this video finds you well today, and welcome to part 2 of my top 10 knives of 2025. And, this is not how I wanted this to go, but I had done the whole video in one solid piece, and was actually working on splitting it and editing it. And, I don't know, something happened during the editing, but I lost the entire thing. I had actually done quite a bit of editing too. I had like little inserts, some music, whole 9 yards, and it all went away, including the original video. So I'm having to re-record this. So I wanted it to go actually up to today when I'm actually recording it, and well, I'm gonna have to wait till tomorrow, I suppose. It's just a short one up today. So hopefully that's not too bad of a thing, not too big of a deal, but let us get back into the video, and let me finish my top 10 knives of 2025 with this knife, what is this? Number 5? Yeah, number 5. This is the Poikilo Small Prism. And you can pretty much see right out of the gate why this is interesting, and why it's pretty spectacular. And that is, well, there's no hardware anywhere. It's completely hidden hardware. It's got absolutely amazing action. It's got a spring-loaded pocket clip that sits darn near flush in the open position. It's titanium liner lock with not a ton of like cutback access, but the access is really quite good with a very beautifully stepped. Like I like this stepping. This is a fantastic lock bar structure. It's got a beautiful sort of Wardenclyffe sheep's foot blade. It is a little bit thick, or I should say, no, it gets thick quickly because it doesn't have a super tall grind. I wouldn't mind a thinner grind, or not necessarily thinner blade stock, but like a hollow grind on it would probably set it off the top. It's got a beautiful fine satin and this sort of, I don't know, like a almost mirrored vapor blast or something going on here. It is an M398 blade steel. There's a ton of interesting stuff going on here. It's got a flipper and a front flipper, and due to the extremely high position to the pivot, the front flipper is unbelievably easy. Like, anybody can do this front flipper. It's so easy. The only funny thing before I get into the like negatives, well, I guess I should also mention the final positive, and the sharpening choil and plunge grind is, the plunge grind could definitely be better. It's long, but they did leave you a sharpening choil. The stop pin does not hit in a place where you can't cut in more choil, even though it will look a little weird because it's going to be round, and all the aesthetics on this thing are pretty sharp and angular. But I actually haven't done the review on this because I totally forgot. I was going to look into the whole disassembly system on this thing and all this other stuff, and it just got away from me. I totally forgot to do the full review on this thing, but I've had it for quite a while, and it was actually my first Poikilo knife, and I'm pretty darn happy with it. Though I will say that the pocket clip doesn't allow for super deep carry. I mean, you can only really get it into about here in your pocket, which is pretty darn shallow carry, honestly. You don't want to wear this thing with thick pants. It's just not viable. I have seen a custom maker, one or two custom makers, where they do this thing with these flat clips that are spring-loaded, where the clip itself, as you push it in, has like a hinge or something, so the entire clip can kind of lift up when it's actually in use, and then when it's not in use, it sort of folds back in, and then the spring holds the end down. So there's definitely some improvement to be made there. The other area where there's improvement to be made is just Poikilo's branding. I really hate when they put all the, I mean, I talked about it in the Null Knives video, or Null Knives section of the previous video, if you care to watch that, or the previous video at all. It will be, it's on the channel. But I hate when not only companies put all of their logos big down on the cutting bevel, not the edge bevel, but the cutting bevel of the knife. But Poikilo is a particular offender of that, in that they put not only the big angry lizard, but they put their name underneath it, and then they put, I guess, the designer or the series, like they have different series of knives. that different things fall in, like bio series, which are usually named after organics or animals or stuff like that. And let's be honest, I don't want to say slip-on my knife or Poikilo on my knife, especially on a knife like this, where it's all modern, futuristic sort of aesthetic, sharp angles. That just looks better. It could be so clean, and that just massively hits like a negative for me personally, especially when they can just stick the little angry guy and maybe slip on like on the spine or something like that, or inside, which you'll see in just a minute how they could potentially do it and do it better. That's holding this thing back. It's a really, really cool knife. That's a big negative for me personally, and just in my opinion, I think it negatively impacts what could be otherwise a ridiculously cool knife. It still is cool, and it's still deserving to be here, but could do better there. Moving on from that, this is in fact, the knife that I was talking about. Do you see any branding on this knife? No. The branding on this knife is non-existent because they just put the name of the two designers in there. This is a Riot-made knife. It is the Black Snow Customs Lee Lerman collaboration Bowie of a custom knife that they do. Calling it as a Bowie is a little bit interesting. I mean, it kind of is. It's a clip point Bowie, but it's also got a huge recurve. It's doing a lot of things. This is an absolutely fantastic knife that came out this year. I cannot get over how much this thing is awesome. I really do like this one. Well, obviously, I just said it's awesome. What the heck am I saying? I don't even know. Let's just talk about the knife real fast. You've got, of course, that blade shape with a beautiful hand-rubbed satin and this sort of mirror stonewash. That's a little bit of my face. You can't really see it very well. With this huge recurve, it's gorgeous. Yes, the sharpening tool and plunge grind on this knife is terrible. The plunge grind is awful. I don't know why it is awful. Fortunately, they put the stop pins attached to the blade, so you can cut in more, but there's no reason for that, especially when everything else here is executed so well. This knife sort of falls into the same category as the Molesect in that it doesn't quite make sense. In fact, a lot of Black Snow Customs, in my opinion, don't make sense. A lot of the underlying frame in Black Snow Customs is exposed because the, I guess, scales are more like just overlays where they are covering part of the thing. And it looks like this would be uncomfortable. Kind of hard angles. I mean, yeah, there's chamfers here to make it much more comfortable, but just some hard angles and different things that you'd think wouldn't really work, especially on this one with the clip kind of starting to get very close to the spine, which is normally a bad thing, and yet it works. It just works. It's ultra comfortable in the hand, in my personal opinion, in my hands. It's got titanium frame, titanium bolster, paper micarta back overlay scale, I guess. Paper micarta pivot collar, which is kind of a cool touch. It is a flipper only knife. I think that really doesn't make a difference on this one. Sure, they have put maybe studs on there too, or maybe put like a fuller that you could flick off of. Sure, but I'm okay with that. It's also got amazing detent and crazy strong acoustics. Lock bar access is great. Action is absolutely amazing. It is centered. It is just... This is a really cool and dramatic looking knife. And honestly, the only thing keeping it from being arguably higher on this list is just how... Which, I mean, it is number 4. It's pretty high on the list, right? But how subjective and how non-universally useful this blade shape can be. A lot of people aren't going to want to deal with the recurve. It's got a huge amount of belly. The tip's high enough that it's not really super easily accessible without going way up here. I mean, you can get to it here, but you're still hitting so much belly. It's just not universal enough for me to say, like, yeah, this is just perfect for everybody. And that holds it back a little bit. But beyond that, there's not much else holding this back. I really like this thing, and I'm glad I was able to get my hands on one. The next knife is actually a budget knife. Number 3 is a budget knife. This is the Bestech Angry Owl, and if you saw the review for this thing, well, you'll know why I like it, but this thing has only grown on me ever since I got it. It's a pretty straightforward knife. It's G10. It's got the carbon fiber like peel ply, which I don't usually love, but with the texturing and like dimension of the handle, I think it really adds something to it. You can get plain G10 variants. There are tons of colors, and you can get this plain blade or a black blade. So there's a lot of options here. It's also a $45 knife. I got it for $34 on sale. It's absolutely heads and tails above most knives in this price point. It's so good. It's got D2 blade steel. Not everybody's going to love that. It's not corrosion resistant, but you're probably going to get the most potential edge retention out of D2 at this price point. So it is what it is. Just take care of it. Yes, they have some branding on here, but it's relatively small. They don't have a flat to put it on, and it's a budget knife. I'm going to give some exceptions for budget knives. When you're paying, $500 a knife, I don't want to see shit on my blade. There, who cares? It's also like, yeah, Bestech could be gone, but the logo's pretty small. The designer's relatively small. No big deal to me. Doesn't need to be there. It could be better without it, but it's not hurting it, especially at this price point. It's got a beautifully thin edge with a pretty good edge actually out of the factory. Perfect jimping, this super tight wire jimping, tons of traction, super effective. It is a top liner lock through the front, not the rear like the gringo over here. That works pretty darn excellently. It's got really addictive action. I don't know what about the snap and feel of this entire thing when it goes. It really feels good, and it really sounds good. That alone has really sort of made this thing more and more attractive to me. I don't know why. It's satisfying. Deep carry pocket clip that is reversible, which is nice because this is a surprisingly ambidextrous lock setup. Like the rear top liner lock isn't always sort of ambidextrous, but this front mounted one is pretty darn, much like a button lock, is pretty darn ambidextrous. Yeah, you could get a little bit less flat on the end of the clip, but it still does work pretty well. Lanyard hole for those who care. It also has, let's just say this. If this can be done on a $45 knife, why is this not being done on every single knife? Or just thereabout? Actually, two things. First of all, internally mounted stop pins attached to the blade. That's a theme going on here with a lot of knives. Yeah. For $45, if you can do it there, why aren't you doing it everywhere else? Or as many places as possible that will allow based on the actual structure of the handle. And the second one is that sharpening on choil and plunge grind. Do you see that plunge grind? That is the start and end of the plunge grind. Up there. This is almost a fully flat ground blade, just a little tiny swedge up there. Or not swedge, but tiny bit of spine. Or, well, it's not really even a flat, but whatever. But this plunge grind, let's get back to that. It starts and ends almost instantaneously. It's basically a straight down drop. If they can do that, why aren't they doing it on all of their knives? Why aren't every company doing it on all of their knives? If it's not like, you kind of accept that maybe, or at least I did. I always figured it was a bit of a pain to get a super clean plunge grind. It was just easier with some machining to have it sort of drop down. And of course, companies just weren't paying attention, or when they were making the knives, they didn't really put the thought into it to worry about that. But at this price, if you can get it to drop almost straight down, then there's really no reason for a plunge to, take up half the blade or meet the edge of the blade. It's just kind of unacceptable. Another thing to go on the wish list for improvements in 2026, basically. Amazing plunge grind. Surprisingly comfortable choke-up position. It's sort of a trigger pull with this rounded, but it really works. It keeps you away from the edge really comfortably. Like I said, the only thing really hurting this is the flat at the end of the clip, and that the tip is pretty high because a lot of the belly up front, plus this grind sort of situates it where you can definitely use the tip without too much, but it's definitely high. It's definitely not a piercing tip either. It's it's a trade-off kind of thing. It's doing its own thing for reasons, scraping a lot of strength up there. But you're, of course, losing out on some of the utilitarian nature of a blade tip that you oftentimes see on a lot of other models. However, and it's also full of little details. If you really look, you got this satin here, but on the spine, you have this beautiful frosty stonewash. It's actually on the flats too, but they're completely hidden. Did they have to do that? No. That's like completely unnecessary. That's an extra level of execution that did not need to go into this knife, and yet it did. This thing is just honestly excellent. And I'm flabbergasted at the price point. If we need more like this, we just do. Oh, I suppose the button does occasionally come a little bit like unscrewed. It's never unscrewed beyond past just this tiny little bit, but it does loosen a little bit. I could take it apart and put a little Loctite in there, but it's never caused me an issue, so no big deal. The Angry Owl from Bestech Men. It's got a very similar, I think the same designer, to the Good Boy, so yeah, there's some options in this territory, and if they're anywhere as good as this, it's something to be watching out for. It's great budget knife. Number 2, this is the Jack Wolf Knives Scuffle. This is probably the furthest away from their modern knife, or not modern traditional style that they've done, and arguably, in my opinion, one of the best knives they've ever done. Just in pure execution terms. It's got still your fantastic ultra-thin slicey blade with, I mean, it's got a good edge on it. I've never been super ultra, like, impressed with the sharp, bitey edges of Jack Wolf knives. It's just that there's such good geometry that no matter what you do, they're going to be like, they're aggressive, they're feeling, which is fine. They're going to cut perfectly well, and you can always, with your first sharpening, put a slightly more aggressive edge on them, but it's great. Good tip access, super thin. It is a flipper tab, and you can definitely use these fullers for reverse flick and even thumb flick. The sharpening tool and plunge grind is good. The actual finger choil isn't much of a finger choil. You can only really kind of get your first knuckle in there, and it's not super comfortable because the front of the tab sort of curves into and arcs into you. It's not the most comfortable. However, I have found that getting closer to the edge is possible by just sort of rolling up on top of this part of the flipper tab from the actual back end, which is much more comfortable because it sort of rounds into it. So you can still get pretty darn close to the edge there. The jimping is, it kind of provides a little bit of traction. It's not perfect jimping, but it's fine. It is a titanium bolster lock on bearings. Once again, stop pin is internally mounted to the blade. This particular one has the Black Ice Kyanite resin scales. There were a number of options. There was even a full titanium frame lock version of this knife. I don't know what ones are still around, but I'm sure there might be a couple variants that are still floating around somewhere. You have beautiful polished backspacer and polished pivot collars. I will say that the only issue with the pivot collars that I had was that mine came with some, well, scuffs on them, scratches and stuff like that. I did contact Jack Wolf, and they immediately sent me new pivot collars. No problem there, no complaints. I just haven't put them on because I've got it set up like perfectly, and I, well, Loctited the whole thing and everything like that, and it's centered, and it's just right where I want it, the action and everything like that. So I'm just hesitating to take it apart until it starts to come off center, or it starts to, you know, maybe the Loctite wears out a little bit or something like that. Lock bar axis is, as typical with most Jack Wolves, not really cut back. They want to maintain sort of their flowing aesthetic, especially considering typically most of the knives being modern traditionals are based off slip joint patterns, and you wouldn't see a big lock bar cut out on that because there's no lock bar. They want to keep the aesthetic, and I get that. This one, however, has probably the best lock bar axis of any Jack Wolf. As you can see, it's got deep chamfers in there, and they're really, really easy to access. No problem from the side. It's also got it does something that a lot of other Jackwolves don't, whereas they have tended to have kind of sharp lock bars and, honestly, inlays in the past. This one is really nicely knocked down everywhere. Super comfortable. Nice touch, honestly. Very ergonomic, very neutral handle. The only downside of this knife is the clip a little bit. This is, of course, subjective to your hand, but I can feel the clip a little bit more than I want. I think the clip would have really benefited. You can't really... There's no real chamfer on the clip, right? It's rounded and softened, but a chamfer around the edge of the clip would definitely have probably benefited to just sort of round it around. You can definitely feel the clip a little bit more, and I'll be honest, in the push position, unless you can and find the right position, you can find a good position no matter what you do. I'm not going to say that you can't, but if you just sort of grab it immediately and you grip into it, here, I'll grip into it nice and tight. Well, you can see right there. Because this flare up and swoop of the clip brings it close to the spine, and it's also sort of poking out there, it kind of hits into your hand in a pretty uncomfortable way. However, little cant, perfectly fine for the push grip, and you don't really feel it too much. You feel the clip, but it's pretty darn comfortable, honestly, in the standard grip. Overall, this is just sort of a super well-rounded, very useful sort of knife. I think this is possibly one of Jackwolf's best, and I'm very, very happy to see what they are going to be coming up with in the future. I know they just dropped a fixed blade, and as much as I really, really like that fixed blade, it's just a little too small for my taste. If I do a fixed blade, I like something where it's, you got like at least 3.5-inch blade, if not more. I prefer like a 4-inch pocket fixed blade, but that's just my taste. So the one they dropped is a little bit smaller, so I'm not probably going to check that one out unless I contact them and they offer me, but that's probably not going to be happening because I'm a small channel. That's just what it is. So, well, hopefully that'll change in the upcoming year. I mean, this is the first year of my channel, really, so I think I'm doing okay. Or at least I'm contented with it, based on what I'm doing. No more hims and haws. Let us come to number 1. The top knife of 2025 for me. This is the one Track Mind Ire. Funny enough, this knife is made by Kunwu. So I started off this list with a knife with Kunwu, and at the bottom 10, and at the very top, number 1, is also a knife made by Kunwu. The Ire is spectacular. In fact, let me get this out real fast. I also have a second set of scales, the micarta scales for this one, but the carbon fiber is amazing. This particular knife is the first run, serial number. There is going to be a second run. It's coming up for pre-order January 17th, I think it is. And yeah, I'm going to be getting another one. Let's just put it that way. I am going to be getting another one. There's another variant that I want, and it's happening. 20 CV blade steel. This particular one has Kunwu's satin DLC. Beautiful carbon fiber. It was dated, this is it looks like a 12/24. However, I didn't get this until, it didn't, like, the pre-order did not ship out and arrive until past the beginning of the year. So, I'm putting it in 2025. Steve Joyce is the owner and the designer. And he's done 2 knives in 2025. I didn't check out the second one, but even if I did, I don't think it's going to beat this one. Let's be completely honest. Beautiful sort of sheep's foot blade shape. Very sort of... You can definitely see some inspiration from something like the CKF Evo that I kind of mentioned in the previous video. I think with the lower sort of... The blade shape and the edge being so much lower than the handle, it's you can see some inspiration there. They're definitely doing different things. I'm not saying anything else like that. But the action is drop shot, stunning, super comfortable. You have multiple ways to actuate this thing, and honestly, all of them work super well. Super high to the pivot. Front flipper, again, top-notch stuff there. Stop pins attached to the blade, so you can definitely do whatever you want there. Sharp control and plunge grind is perfection. This is how you do it. It is a bolster lock in carbon fiber, and unlike the shred carbon fiber on the Gringo, look at that. That is spectacular. I love this carbon fiber. They need to use this more often. This is really, really good. The execution is amazing. It's got an interesting shape pivot, or captured pivot. Choke-up position, ergos, pretty darn neutral, super comfortable in the hand. An amazing pocket clip, just simple. Milled pocket clip. It is reversible. It has a tab there, but this pocket clip, you got chamfer around the whole thing. This is what I think the Jack Wolf maybe could have benefited from, maybe even one slightly more aggressive on that particular knife. Great flex, surprisingly deep carry, decent height for, surprisingly deep carry for a milled titanium pocket clip. Beautiful backspacer with, as you can see, these sort of like milling lines in it. Just a nice little touch, subtle, fun, interesting. This is just great. The only thing that I think this knife could be improved by, and this is personal, is I personally like hollow grind. So, of course, I'm going to say hollow grind on everything, but it comes down to a super thin edge. It's nice, it's usable, it cuts great, it's fantastic. Everything about this knife, this is an entire package. And honestly, coming out of Kunwu, despite the fact that it is, you know, an OEM knife by Kunwu, the price point was pretty darn reasonable. It's just, it did everything right. It's fantastic, and it definitely is deserving of the top knife of the year for 2025, for me at least. I didn't see everything, but of course, but I still don't know if they could beat it out. It's just so good and so satisfying. The jimping, the jimping's fine. It does provide a little bit of traction. It's not my favorite kind of jimping. This is pretty much the best kind of jimping, but aside from my finger being dry and apparently cracking, holy crap. Oh, also, one thing that's really, really fun that I love, well, not fun, but, well, it's fun for me. I like seeing these things. And that is, they did my favorite thing and put the tang nub. And what is the tang nub? The tang nub is that little bump in the tang that hits your finger when you disengage a knife. So instead of, you know, guillotining into your finger, the tang nub here hits it, stops it, and prevents that from happening. And that is a nice touch, especially in a knife that doesn't have like the flipper tab or anything like that. The lock bar axis is also pretty great. It's not perfect. You do have to come a little bit from the diagonal, but I honestly don't mind it whatsoever. This thing is absolutely my favorite knife of 2025. The Kunwu made One Track Mind. Check them out. I'll even link their either site or Instagram down below. I hope you've enjoyed seeing my top knives. I've enjoyed experiencing them, and hope there's more to come. And I hope that you'll consider dropping a subscription and checking out more of my videos down the road, or in the past, or whatever you feel like doing, honestly. It's up to you. Thanks for watching. See you later. Have a great new year.